Hello, everyone, and good morning. Welcome to our live feed update for August 7th. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, and I am here today to update you on everything that happened yesterday on the Big Brother 25 live feeds. It was day 5 in the house, and I did say yesterday that it might be a slower one. And for a second there, it seemed like that might have been the case. But of course, uh, they're like werewolves. They just they go wild at night here in the Big Brother 25 house. So there's gonna be a lot to get to today. And with me to break it all down is Mary. How you doing, Mary?
I'm doing great. I am just so thrilled to be back in a live feed update where it's live feeds that happened for hours. I'm
Yep.
so glad to be back. You know what? It feels like it's been a long time.
Yes, I cannot imagine if we were restricted to a poorly edited 2 hour segment per day that happened at like 1 p.m.
Yeah, that's what
Uh,
this would be like. It would be like, well, there were a couple conversations and they were hanging out in the backyard, so that was fun and
yeah.
some interesting segments and some questions from the diary room that we could talk about. That would be what
Mhm.
it would be.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's get straight into this because man, there's so I love that you're all watching the live feed update, but you should also check out the feeds occasionally. You can do both because there's like so many interesting and funny and weird conversations that I'm gonna have to summarize and not like super dig deep into because otherwise we'd be here for 5 hours. But man, it's going all over the place. Let me just quickly catch you up on where we are. Of course, with Riley as the HOH, she took down Corey and Jared from the block. We saw that in the episode last night. Felicia and Kirsten have remained on the block with Kirsten as the target. Heisem won the veto and does not plan on using it, with which means that Kirsten is going to remain the target this week. Now that's what's happening with the nominations, but of course, all of the other stuff going on in the background is kind of more interesting because Riley, Jag, and Blue tried to create this big onion structured alliance of 8 people that included Corey and Jared. Jared then ratted the alliance out to Suri and the other side, who became aware of the fact, and they had some suspicions, but now became aware of the fact concretely that they needed to do something and solidify their own group. And because they knew exactly who was in the alliance, they knew exactly who they needed to go and talk to recruit, to try and build numbers to contend with the other side of the house. On top of that, the people within this big onion structured alliance very much are not very secretive about who they're tight with and who they are aligned with. And on top of that, they weren't very secretive within themselves either about the structure. When they brought in Corey, they were very clear that the 5 of them had been talking and that they wanted to pull in Corey. So Corey has very easily been able to determine that those are the 5. So with all of that in mind, it's given the other side of the house exactly the information that they need to try and again gather the troops. So that's what's been happening. That was what was happening yesterday. And the main plan that was going through yesterday was Corey seems like the biggest loose end on the other side. Can we try and flip him based on his conversation about that structure with Jared? And that was sort of the plan today, was to talk more with Corey, get a conversation between Corey and Suri, and try to get Heisem to actually engage with Corey and get Corey to feel comfortable about Heisem, because that was the one caveat, that was the one thing holding Corey back from really jumping in on their side for now. And so that's kind of where we start the day.
Yes, that's where we start. And we're going to get to most of those things, at least. They say, hey, expect this tomorrow, and then they follow through. So I like to see that. Um, I I like a lot of the conversations that happen throughout this day, but I do want to bring up just at the beginning. I know we're going to break them down and get to all of them. But Taryn, how do you feel like Cerie's skills from Survivor have been translating so far overall?
I think that her ability to bond with people and win them to her side and get them to be just like immensely loyal to her is obviously um, like the main thing that's translating so far. I think her experience strategically is working very well for her as well. I think that like she's working with a lot of different wild cards it, in different ways. Like Heisem has his own issues. Izzy has her own issues. Even Jared, to a degree, was a little messy. He's been cleaning it up, as she might put it, lately. And then there's Bowie, and there's Red, and there's Felicia, and it's like these are all it's an eclectic group of people that she has managed to kind of wrangle together. And when they go off too far in one direction, she's usually there to be like, let's just reel that back just a little bit. She's not very forceful about it. Maybe needs to be a little more forceful about it, considering how far they often go. But I think primarily it's her ability to put together numbers, which is a very survivory thing to do. That is proving very valuable so far. And especially in the position that they're in, where they need as many numbers as possible to fight this other group.
Yeah, and she also just has a really magical way about talking to people in a way that can be directive to give constructive criticism without people taking it that way. I know that was something you and Maggie brought up yesterday, but it's it's amazing how you can have a conversation with someone and not feel insulted by what they're saying and learn from it and actually feel like they care. Um, Cerie's going to mention like a couple times today in different conversations this idea of like, look, we don't need to check in every day. Like it'll be fine, but I'm with you. And that could be like a dangerous line in a game where people can forget not to keep checking in. But I don't know if Cerie told me that once, I might just take it to heart.
Hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of little things that I think a lot of new players would just neglect and are neglecting. Suri doesn't neglect those things as much. She does make sure to come back and check in with the right people at the right times to make sure that she's staying good with them. Is one really good example of this, and we'll talk about it by the end of the day. Is like the relationship with Riley. She did get a little paranoid, primarily through Izzy, that Riley might be coming for her. But throughout that, never acted differently around Riley
Hmm.
and made sure to continue to have conversations with Riley. Um, and while a lot of the people that pitched to Riley and tried to get in with Riley through her HOH have since been exposed or neglected to like continue to treat her the right way, and now Riley is kind of not chill with anymore. Cerie and Felicia, by extension, to some degree, are still like the few people on that side that she thinks I still have them though. I've still got them, and that's primarily, in my eyes, due to Cerie's continued checking in at the right time, saying the right things, and that's something that just like a lot of people just neglect that kind of that skill.
I agree. And I've been thinking about this a lot because, not to pivot this about myself, but like many people in the online reality community have done, I recently played like a live version of one of these type of reality games, or live survivor game. And there are so many things that now that my brain is back in Big Brother mode, I'm like, man, I wish the Big Brother season had been going on this summer before I played that and I'd gotten back into this mindset, because there were so many things when I would talk to people that I only realized after the fact. I'm like, yeah, Mary, come on, you've studied this. That's not how you're supposed to talk. You need to do those check-ins. You need to not be paranoid. And I see a lot of myself in some of the way that Corey speaks to people. And I'm like, it's that nervous energy. It's that want to be a fan, want to be a gamer, but afraid that you're coming off that way. And so it's just really fun to get back into this mindset. And I think that proves that, like, no matter how many times that you watch these games and you think about them, you can always learn more, especially once you start putting yourself in those shoes. So I find it fascinating. And I opened up with the question about Suri, obviously, because I think a lot of us are big fans and we don't know how long she'll be in the game. So I want to make sure we talk about it. But overall, this cast has made me excited about the start of the season, excited to see where things are going. So, all right, you want to dive into to what actually
Let's
happened
go. Let's
then?
go straight in here.
All right.
So Izzy is gonna kind of kick us off with the day because Izzy's gonna be a little bit all over the place today. She started the day despite having the idea yesterday, like let's bring Corey in, and then worked on that idea and made some progress with that idea. Started the day telling most people on her side, Corey's the first one to go. He's got to go. He's the one we have to target. Almost like she genuinely forgot about the plan
Yeah.
from the day before.
Was there inception happening last night? Like in those hours of sleep, did we miss something happen where everything was erased and reversed? Is this a
I
Memento
don't.
universe?
Maybe
What's
yeah.
going
Maybe it
on?
wasn't Inception. Maybe this is Memento.
Memento. It's one of the Christopher Nolan things,
Yeah.
something's happening. Yeah.
Um, So don't worry, this is just a fun fact. She's gonna remember the plan later. But Suri eventually does have the conversation with Corey, and I wrote a lot of notes for this because I thought it would be the main thing from the day. So we'll go into this one a bit, but basically and it was also interesting, and I think the relationship between Suri and Corey might be something that's very important as the season goes on because despite the fact that they are pulling Corey in, I still think Corey is genuinely one of the more dangerous players to Suri in that side,
Mhm.
which is partially why getting him on board is very important. But also, you don't want to pull him necessarily too close because I do think he is a very dangerous player. So she says, "Listen, I want to be frank with you. I was a little afraid because you know my history, and I didn't know how I'd be perceived by you." And I don't know if you know that at the core of my history, I'm as loyal as they come. And he says, absolutely. And I have so much respect for you. And I'm also terrified of you. Like, listen, what I've told people is that your allies often end up winning the game. And, in some ways, that's why it's so frustrating to watch you play because you always end up losing in the end. And he says, listen, how I see things in this house is that I would be naive to think there's not a power structure. And she agrees. And then very funnily, she quickly goes, wait a minute. Because they're in the HOH room. She goes, we didn't check the bathroom. Rookie mistake. They go and check the bathroom. He says, when we went from 4 to 2 nominees, I did make a pitch to Riley about like we have a Nashville connection. I did promise that I'd help her if she helped me. And I do owe her one, right? And she told me last minute that I was fine. But my read on my own spot in this house is that I'm not in the power structure, and they think they have me. And again, I do owe Riley, but you know, I think I'm okay with them, but I'm not in their core, and Riley's the only person I owe. On the other hand, I feel like I've had some trouble getting in with the comic room people. And she says, listen, you should always feel free to walk in to the comic room and chat with us. And I want you to know that I am open to potentially working with you. And he says, perfect, because I had a great conversation with Izzy yesterday about how we both really like Jared. And I have a bond with Jared. Like we both got pulled off the block. It's like a special bond. It's like he doesn't know it, but like the Jared stuff in particular, I think is like the biggest selling point.
Oh yeah, every time that he mentions Jared, I think to myself like, "Oh, he's doing a great job because he knows that Jared's Cerise's son." I'm like, "Wait, no, he doesn't know. It's just coincidence that it's a great job."
So he says, Cerise responds with, yeah, Jared, he seems to be a stand-up guy. Seems to be a stand-up guy, that Jared. He says, the only person I need to sit down and talk with, though, is Heisem. I feel like we should be able to get along really well, but we've never been able to sit down and talk. And she says, you don't have to worry about Heisem. There's an obvious split in the house, and whoever wins HOH will be looking at the sides, right, of the house and not you. you're not as a core part of the sides as, would be targeted. And he says, well, that was the thing. I don't know if people perceive me to be in the thing. And she says, no, the perception of you is that you're an expendable number for them. And she says that she certainly wouldn't be targeting him if she won. So he says, well, listen, if you have a good relationship with Heisem, I'm not saying you should vouch for me necessarily, but it might be helpful if you talk to him about our conversation and maybe encourage him to have a conversation with me, and stuff like that. And there's a lot of things that Corey does throughout the day that I really liked. This is one of the first like big ones. Huge thing. I'm a huge advocate of this. Absolutely use the connections that you do have to improve the connections that you don't have,
Mhm.
especially if you know that those people are connected. And especially when that person is Suri, there's a lot of value there.
Yeah. So here's a question I have about this. So Sari then follows this up by saying, yeah, I'll have that conversation, bring it up, but then I also want you to also talk to Heisem. I can see that going two ways in terms of just like best, most optimal gameplay. If Suri really does want to pull Corey in, wants Corey to work together with her, then having Corey be connected with Heisem works great. Doesn't have to deal with someone that she's trying to work with in Heisem, trying to take out someone else she's trying to work with in Corey. The question is, if you're Suri, do you even want Heisem and Corey to build a bond, or do you want to be that middle person who's the only one connecting them?
I mean, I think that the level of distaste that Heisem has for Corey
A little
is
dangerous.
something that needs to be like softened, right?
Yes.
So I do think that there needs to be something happening there. But yeah, I mean, in general, I think it's like, yeah, you would want to keep your own relationship better. But the thing is that it's very clear that like if there isn't some kind of reconciliation between Corey and Heisem, Corey may just abandon going to that side entirely. Because if Suri is attached to Heisem and Heisem is firmly anti Corey, it doesn't matter if Suri is the go between. At the end of the day, Corey is smart enough to realize that's just not a viable side for me to go to. Because if, let's say, okay, I have a great relationship with Suri, but if I let Suri's side dominate the game, now there's a structure that I'm not a part of on the other side.
Mhm.
And not only am I not a part of it, but there's somebody who just actively
Mhm.
despises me there. And that's no good.
Especially because the likelihood that Corey and Heisem are gonna somehow mend this to the point that it's better than the relationship Suri has with either of them is probably not going to happen. And it's early enough in the game where that's not something that you really probably need to worry about. I just think it's interesting when I hear that kind of thing because it does genuinely feel like Suri wants to improve Corey's game.
To a degree, yeah.
Yeah.
So he says, here's the problem. Every time I try to talk to Heisem, he's just giving like diplomatic answers. And I just really want to talk, but he does not seem to want to talk to me. And she says, I think you just need to be open with him. Don't BS him because that pisses him off. And he says, he said, Corey says, I think they're thinking that they're being more subtle than they actually
Yeah.
are. And Cerise says, yeah, they've been blatantly obvious from day one. And he says he thinks that Riley thinks that he's in her back pocket. And Cerise says, well, I think she feels the same way about me. And he tells her that when he talked to Riley on night two, she did say she loved Suri and Felicia. And Suri was like, oh, I'm very glad to hear that because that's what Riley was telling me. Obviously, things could have changed since then, but yeah, that is what she said. Um, and he asks if she's okay with what he's been saying to people about her. And she just says, just the term legend worries me. I would love to not have that word out there. But other than that, then he starts asking questions about Survivor. He's like nerding out. He asks about the balance beam comp in Survivor. She said it was really powerful out there. She gets emotional even talking about it. And it was for her, it was Jeff saying that we'll stay here all night if Suri wants to. That got her emotional. And then he asks about advantage get-in. And Suri, I think interestingly tells Corey that when it came to advantage get-in, and if you don't watch Survivor, it was a situation where every single person other than her had immunity via some sort of twist or other means. And she says that in that moment, like she wasn't worried about it beforehand because she didn't think it would happen, and that she often relies on her allies like Eliza or Andrea for all of that like complicated game mechanic information, because she's more of like a social player, and that basically she can look at like Izzy or him as her Eliza or Andrea this season, the people who are like really in the weeds about that stuff. And I think this is true to a degree. We have seen her lean very heavily on Izzy for a lot of things, which is, Izzy right now is no Eliza or Andrea. So we'll see how that works out for her. But he says if he has any influence, he'll use it to push against her, Izzy, and Mimi from being targeted. And that he says, despite the fact that he's terrified of winning HOH, he doesn't think that he has the luxury of throwing things. And she says, "You'd better not." And he says, "I just wish Heisem knew I'm nowhere. He's nowhere close to my radar." They talk more about that. They talk more about the Survivor stuff that I'm going to skip through here. He asks about Red, and she says she sees Red, that Red seems to get along with Cameron, but she doesn't think that Red is with the other side. And Corey asks if Red knows that. And she says, Red's smart. He sees that he's not in it. If you can see it, I think Red can see it. And he's Corey talks about how he's playing this game in a different way that he thought. He finds it hard to lead with alliance talk when he just wants to talk personal stuff first. And she's like, "You can't do that though. It's day 5. If you're not talking game, then they're going to assume you're talking game with someone else." And she says, "I really like this group we're talking about. And I think that we can make something work. The danger, of course, of letting the big alliance side win a couple times in a row is that they might solidify their group if they keep winning." He says that's the difference, Survivor and Big Brother. In Survivor, numbers are all you need, but on Big Brother, you can be in the minority and win HOH. That's part of why Survivor's the better show, because Big Brother's so goofy. And Sari's like, don't say that. You're on here. He says, but Big Brother's the better game. Which was funny because we had just talked about that on the update. And then finally, she says, "All right, we're locked in. I love this group of me, you, Jared, and Miss Felicia."
Love the throwing in Miss Felicia.
He's like, "Well, let's talk to Izzy about that first, because Izzy was supposed to be there, not Felicia." She's, "All right, I'm sorry, I'm losing brain cells. I like the group of me, you, Jared, Izzy, and Miss Felicia." And he says, "Sure, let's add Felicia. I'm down. Why not?"
Yeah. So the question is, did Corey clock right in that moment? Like, yeah. I mean, it's been pretty obvious that Miss Felicia is with Suri. So the fact that Suri is including the number, I don't think that that's a big problem. But it is funny that Izzy got dropped out and then brought back in there.
Yes. I told you I had a lot of notes for that. Let's speed through some of the rest of this day for now until we get to some of the big stuff at the end. Heisem and Izzy talk about this thing with Blue not being any good. They don't trust Blue at all. And when Suri joins them, she tells them about her conversation with Corey and says that she thinks that Corey and Jared both understand that they're at the bottom of the other side and are willing to work with them. And that basically, Heisem should have a conversation with Corey. So in the meantime, Felicia is going to discuss who to target with Mimi. And she explains that she loves asking direct, blunt questions to people so that they don't have any time to come up with any BS.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite conversations. Just to like, if you want to just even go watch clips of this, I look on Twitter. There's clips of Felicia from this conversation saying that she just likes to go up to people and be like, "Hey, so who are you with? Are you with this person? Are you with this person?"
Yeah.
I'm not going to do it while I'm on the block, but the second I'm off the block, I'm going to start doing it.
Not everyone could pull it off either. I don't think this is something I'd advocate for a lot of
No.
people in general. But it's working for Felicia at the moment. Suri has a conversation with Riley again, and then talks to Izzy. And after the conversation with after all the conversations yesterday and talking with Jared and then talking with Corey and then Riley again, she's pretty convinced at this point that that they were wrong, that there was never a plan to backdoor her,
Mhm.
and she lets Izzy know as much. And maybe this is part of where Izzy starts to get a little bit in her own head about like her value and what she brings, but that's going to come up in just a little bit. But first, another person is also kind of freaking out a little bit. Luke enters the fray and has realized that, like, he was broing out in the first couple days, working out, talking with people, and last couple days, nobody's saying a word to him. What happened? What's going on? Why am I suddenly an outcast?
Yeah.
And he's going to start talking to some people about that.
And we didn't mention earlier, but this is already in a couple conversations earlier. I know Izzy and Jared talked about this, like the idea of, ooh, we should be like putting feelers out there for Luke, either to pull Luke in or to.
Oh man, I don't know if this is me or her. Chat, help. Oh, she's frozen. Oh. It's you never know. You never know sometimes with all of that. Well, all right. Mary, for the listeners, has frozen in place. So we will we will we will try to continue on with this thought. Anyway, talking about Luke, yes, they wanted to potentially pull Luke in. I mean, that's been one of the plays from the start here. Has been can we potentially pull Luke, given the fact that he's not included in this big alliance. And so the idea of potentially working on Luke was something that was already in their minds. And now Luke is starting to express that he is concerned about the fact that he is not really being involved in anything. So he's going to talk in particular with Jared about it. And I think has the most fruitful conversation with Jared, bonding with Jared for a bit. And worth keeping track of this connection to Jared. And here's
Am I
Mary.
back? Okay, I was
Back.
mid-sentence and my power surged and everything shut off. So I don't know
Oh
what
boy.
happened. All right, catch me up. What I miss? Where are we?
Just talking more about Luke. He talked with Jared, and then of course, he's later gonna talk to Izzy, but we're gonna put a
Yes.
pin in that for now.
Yeah,
Um,
the one to I don't know if you finished my thought for me, but it was just that Izzy said we should put the idea out that maybe the other side could target
yes.
Luke as well. Okay. All right. Sorry about that.
So, Izzy, as I said, is starting to just freak out a little bit about, like, I think the value that she brings to Suri, and like we talked about this in the recap last night. The episode does kind of portray Izzy to be a little bit of like a misery character, to be a little bit of like, oh, here are my idols, and now I have dirt on them, and they're forced to work with me. And she's like, I'm not just a fangirl. And she ends up crying to Suri about it, and Suri, of course, is very good in this conversation. She's like, of course you're not. I owe you my life in this game. I owe you Jared's life in this game. And you're the only thing that's keeping me sane. And he's like, I'm just a mess, though. And Cerise says, stop it. I'm gonna have a turn with this too, and you're gonna have to tell me to stop it. 'Cause I need you. I need you in this game. And Izzy's like, oh, I need you too, and I want to do well for you, Cerise. And then Cerise gets her laughing, and it's all fine.
Yep.
They have
So,
sleepy tea.
yes. That's
But
not
they don't
isn't
get
that
sleepy. I mean, they did
no.
for a brief moment of time, but then they were not sleepy. Bad sleepy tea.
Don't have sleepy tea in the middle of the day. That's strictly a very,
It
very,
was
very
nighttime.
but it's the middle of the BB day. If you're gonna be up all night.
So Heisem is going to have a conversation with Matt. And Matt explains to Heisem about how he's been having some trouble communicating in the game and stuff like that, and really sells it well. And I don't know how much of it is a sell and how much of it is just genuine, but talks a lot about like a lot of group conversations. He doesn't really know what's going on. He's kind of nodding along, and really gives Heisem the impression that Matt might be included in the core alliance, but not actually like know or like have not actually like be a part of it, like he's just nodding along basically. And Heisem also tells Matt in response to this his story about being temporarily deaf in one ear for the second time to Matt, because he has already told Matt that story. That was like the one of the first things he talked to Matt about when he met him. I don't know if he forgot that he had already told that story, but he told it again.
I I don't know. I mean, I'm a person I feel like I get caught accidentally telling the same story multiple times to people. So I feel like I give a little bit of leeway, although it is a little funny that it's this early. Like if it was like day 20 and you tell a story and it's like, yeah, yeah, there's been a lot of conversations. It's okay. But I don't know. Just the forgetting the names early on, forgetting who you told what story to. I think it's funny.
Yeah, he also had to be corrected about he keeps calling Suri Cherie.
Mhm.
He continues to call Corey Cody, and various other things. So Izzy is going to go to Luke and say, "Hey, we should talk more game." Like she works on this, like, "Hey, let's maybe try and pull Luke in." And Luke really does like appreciate that she's trying to talk game with him because nobody else is. And he's like, "You're like the first person to really like talk game with me here." So I really like, yeah, I'm down. However, Riley, who has already become suspicious of Izzy because of the whole "did you throw the competition" thing, spreading rumors about it and all of that, notices that Izzy
Mhm.
is going up to Luke, not very or very conspicuously, and it starts to feel like, oh, wait a minute, this is bad. Hold on, uh,
Yeah.
Izzy's trying to recruit.
Yeah. My favorite part here is also where Riley says, "Yeah, this will be a problem if the other side has figured out our eight." And it's like, it's also a problem if you don't actually have that eight, and that your number, and that they've not only figured out the eight you have, but that they've taken some of the eight.
Yeah. And that's kind of like like they're starting to get worried and they should be worried, but they haven't been worried because they thought that they were solid. But now, you know, what's interesting is that this eight formed, and then the other side found out, started retaliating secretly, and the power balance was that the eight didn't know that the other side knew, and so didn't know that they needed to be defending.
Mhm.
One side was at war, and the other side, was just chilling. But they're starting to recognize, because the other side is also not being secretive enough, that something might be going on. And so Riley talks to Jag about it, and they are beginning to feel like Izzy is the biggest problem on the other side. That Izzy is the issue. She's the one running around saying that Riley threw the veto, and now she's the one trying to recruit Luke. Izzy is the person that they need to be concerned about. And Jag says, "Man, we haven't been secretive enough about our alliance." And it's like, I mean, Jag, you're actually fine. It's pretty much everyone else in the alliance that hasn't been secretive enough. Uh, Jag actually suggests, we could just try and get the veto used and then backdoor Izzy this week. But
Ooh.
Riley says no. She shuts that down. That would be way too out of left field. She would not want to alienate Sari and Felicia like that. She's not down for it. She wants this to be the easy week she envisioned.
Yeah. All right. I feel like I can see the idea of having a plan, wanting to stick to it, especially when you've already told people that plan, not wanting to change it. I mean, already today, Riley has had a conversation with Hissam saying, oh, this is the plan. It's not changing. Don't worry about it. Everything's fine. But if the plan is not beneficial to you moving forward, best not waste the chance to rectify the situation. Um, so yeah, I can see the tough part. The part when paranoia comes in is always thinking like in the back of your mind. But if we're just being paranoid and we're actually okay, I don't want to do too much and mess things up. But the downside here, I think, is a lot worse. So if you know that Izzy's probably not with you and Izzy is actively working against you, at the very least, I mean, if Izzy's already against you, they're not going to be more against you by you trying to go after them. They're already against you. So you might as well take the shot.
Yeah. Corey is going to have his conversation with Heisen. And this is a big moment because, pulling Corey away from that other side could be very important. If they can get Corey to not strike at them and not strike at Heisem, who's probably their most valuable competition asset, that's huge. So it's very much like on Heisem here. Can he make Corey feel comfortable? And the answer to that question is no. Not because he's incapable of making Corey feel comfortable, primarily because he actively has zero interest in it. And in fact, I think actively wants to make Corey feel as uncomfortable as possible, which is pretty wild. This conversation was ridiculous to watch. This conversation would be ridiculous to watch in real life. Like, this is a conversation that you'd be like, this is out of this world. Why is this person acting this way? But in the context of Big Brother, it is even more exponentially ridiculous. Like, why would you ever behave this way in the Big Brother house for absolutely zero reason?
I don't know. Is there something in the water? It's cannot come up with a reason. Fascinating. I mean, Taran, if you're in that conversation hearing it, do you think that you would be able to just like listen to it, or do you think you would have to comment on the ridiculousness of it as it's happening?
If I was one of the participants or just
Yes.
watching?
No, the participants. Like, I mean, I
Oh
even think for
yeah.
the
I mean,
participants.
listen. This is a moment where I was like, if I was playing the game, I think I would muster up the patience for it. But like, I mean, certainly in real life, I would have zero patience for this. Like, just like 60 seconds of Heisem like staring at his bowl and going, mm-hmm, okay, all right. Like, not even looking at Corey as he's speaking. Like, I'd be like, dude, what is up? Like, what is happening here? Why do you hate me so much?
I like I I feel like maybe some of Miss Felicia's like directness would be good here of just saying like, is there something I did? Can we just talk about this? Like, can we address the fact that I'm getting really bad vibes off of you? And is there it's so early. Is there anything I can do to change this? Or is this just how it is?
Yeah, and that's basically what Corey eventually has to do,
Yep.
although somewhat lightly. He tries to give Heisem the same pitch that he gave to Suri. He tries to tell Heisem the things that Suri told him to tell Heisem. But Heisem is again giving him absolutely nothing. Again, like taking an immense interest in his bowl of slop and barely mustering a word or two in response to Corey spilling his guts to him. And which is not to say that Corey is doing like an amazing job. Again, I feel like socially Corey does have some flaws when it comes to this. I think that in general he is like kind of a guarded person, and he tries to express vulnerability, but he doesn't like it's like a controlled vulnerability. Like, his body language is not vulnerable. The way that he speaks isn't vulnerable. But he tries to convey it anyway while also feigning this like confidence and
Mhm.
decisiveness. And I think that contrast it doesn't invite a lot of like trust and connection. But I don't think any of that matters. I think he could be the most inviting person in the world right now, and Heisem would not be into it. He does not want anything to do with Corey. So Corey eventually does have to say, "Listen, it just it feels like you don't like me." And Heisem goes. That gets him to look up from his bowl, and he goes, "I don't know you. I don't know you." And Corey's like, "Well, yeah, like I'd like to get to know you, like can we? I'd love to." And Heisem's like, "Well, we don't talk." Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do right now.
That's what we're doing right here. This thing with the voices and the words.
Um, and this though, like, finally does get Heisem to engage a little more, which of course, is valuable. But this conversation does not go super well, and they end up getting interrupted. And Corey goes down and sees Serene Izzy in the comic room. And then Bowie ends up joining as well. So it's hard to know what he would have said if Bowie hadn't joined. But he basically says, just talk to Heisem. Thumbs up. He's a nice guy. Basically like, hey, I think it went well. So you know, hey, maybe the engagement made Corey feel good. Spoilers, it didn't.
But I
But
do like saying, like,
yes,
the saying that it went well, because I think even just having it out there that if it gets back to Heisem that Corey felt like that was an okay conversation, like, at this point, any tactic to make Heisem like Corey is, or not hate him, is beneficial. Um,
exactly. And this is another one of the things I really liked about what Corey did. Now, there's some danger here. If Heisem knows that there's zero chance that Corey would ever feel good about that conversation, then he will come off as manipulative and
mhm.
like he'll get caught doing this. However, I mean, at this point, he's throwing anything he can against the wall, and if Heisem already doesn't like him, so he's basically, I think, at this point, going, "Okay, the conversation didn't work. This guy just really does not like me. My only play at this point is to convince him that he has snowed me, that he has like
Right.
somehow tricked me into liking him, despite the fact that he doesn't. Make him feel like, haha, I'm so good at this that I was able to have that conversation with somebody I don't like and convince them that I like them, which will make him at least not be threatened by Corey."
Right, because at the very least, it's like, all right, Heisem doesn't like me, but if Heisem at least thinks that I like him, or that I don't dislike him, at least then it's one sided, and it's not as threatening. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, like, Sari clocked early on and told Corey, like, if Heisem if thinks that you're lying, you're basically dead to him. Like, that's how it is, and it, you know. Truer words.
Yeah, let me tell you, it's a very frustrating experience to have somebody actively, obviously not like you, and then when you try to at least level with them and be like, can we talk about this? They go, "What are you talking about? I don't dislike you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You won't even talk to me about it at all. Like, what is happening here?"
Because there's, like, 2 tactics when you have a person like this. You either just say, "Okay, I'm just gonna kind of, like, kill kill 'em with kindness over time and just, like, you know, keep trying to have, like, normal, non-strategic conversations, but just try to get to know them in a normal way and hope that that works eventually, hope that it sorta eats away at them enough where they at least just stop hating me." Or then the other option, which is, like, try to really, really say, like, "No, look, you're not talking to me. I can see it, you can see it. There's a barrier here. I'm calling it out." And I don't know, Corey kind of tries to do both. So it's interesting.
Yeah. So While this is happening, Mimi is going to have a conversation with America in the bathroom where
Oh,
they are going
America?
to.
Is that a
Uh,
player?
yeah, no, she's not talking to the camera. She's talking to America, the player. And they bond a bit. And Mimi seems like this is maybe one of her go-to moves here is going to kind of like, hey, like let's look out for each other, like on the down low, nobody would really see it coming. Um, let's try and make something happen here. And so there's a little bit of a connection here. These kinds of connections, I think, are going to become more and more important as the sides become more and more defined and known. The interconnected relationships are going to be what's really going to make the strategy of the season function. So if they could actually make something work here, I think that could be very valuable. But these conversations don't often lead anywhere super solid. So Hisam comes down and talks to Sari, Felicia, Izzy, and Bowie, and he tells them about his conversation with Corey. He also talks about a conversation with Kirsten, but again, Kirsten is kind of dead in the water at this point, and that conversation was just rehashing a bunch of stuff. So he explains the conversation with Corey, and the way that Hisam explains this conversation is like completely different from how it went. Like not completely, like the vibe is still there. He's very much telling them about like the disdain he has for Corey and how he expressed that. But like in Hisam's mind, like he was like this, he was like if Corey is a debate bro, right? In Hisam's mind, he's like owning Corey at every moment. Like, who are you tight with? Oh, Riley. Oh, well, she's the HOH. Who do you think is in power? Oh, Riley. Well, obviously she's in power. Who else? Oh, Jag. Well, everyone knew that already. When in reality, the conversation was like, so I think Riley, Jag, maybe Cameron are tight. It's just like he's adding his thoughts as though he said them and like
Yeah.
was owning Corey at every moment. It's pretty funny. But he basically says he still definitely does not like Corey. However, after all of it, he does think that Corey is on the outskirts of the power and therefore not really a threat to them. He agrees with Sari's assessment. So ultimately, the conversation kind of worked for Corey's purposes to some degree, but certainly not to the extent that he would have liked.
Mhm.
Did it work for Hisam? We'll find out very soon. But he is not done. Hisam continues to talk about how he spoke with Matt as well. And he does not think that the other side has Matt as much as they think they do. So, with that in mind, those numbers are starting to look a lot smaller than they did initially. And what it really means is that it's like Riley, Jag, Cameron, Blue, and that's kind of it. That's all they've got. The other four are like floating away. Jared's going away. Corey's going away. Matt's not really with them. Maybe America. We're not sure. But this is what we can do. We can, gather together our side, get 7 of us together, and we can battle it out. We can take out. I think he says Cameron is the biggest threat. This is what's been talked about throughout the day. That they've landed their sights onto Cameron. They think that Cameron is in the core instead of Blue. They think it's Riley, Jag, and
Mhm.
Cameron. And on top of that, they know Cameron has a good relationship with Corey, and they know Cameron has a good relationship with Red. And those are 2 people that they're trying to work on. And so taking Cameron out of that equation helps remove that connection to the other side. They feel like Cameron is in the best spot in the house. And guess what? So does Cameron. So therefore, they want to target Cameron. Now, the 7 people that they're putting together includes Red. And Sari is a little concerned about Red. She's still not sure how much to tell him, but Hisam says, don't worry about Red. Every time I ask the other side about Red, nobody knows who he's talking to or where he stands. So I think Red is good. I think he's actually with us. So they go, okay, that's it then. Let's lock in this 7. The 7 is Hisam, Sari, Felicia, Izzy, Bowie, Red, and Mimi. That's the 7. And then, of course, Jared, they say he'll be on the outskirts. We can drag him along. But of course, we know where that would actually go. So, riling speech. Hisam tries to let's get this all together. They're all excited. This is going to happen. And it sounds great, right? Right, Mary? It sounds good. The other side doesn't even know that they're coming. It's going well.
Nothing's going to change. This is it for the rest of the season. Glad we figured that out.
Yeah.
Glad that there's no more conversations after this. And then they all went to bed, and that was it.
Or even during this. Like, for instance, while this is happening, Red is upstairs talking to Riley. Yep. And remember when Cerie said Red was really smart?
Uh-huh.
He might be. Maybe this was intentional, but he basically gives away the game to Riley. He says, yeah, I think you, Jag, Blue, Cameron, Corey, Jared, America, and Matt are all working together. And she goes, oh, do you now? That's interesting.
That's the whole alliance.
That's not like exactly all of the people in the alliance. That's not like what Jared told all of you guys, right? Like that would be pretty weird.
He's like, it's almost like you're a family. No, I'm kidding. He doesn't say that
part. So she's not very pleased about this. And she does her best to dissuade him of this theory and tries to work on building a game relationship with him. She would really like to pull him in, especially if he's armed with this knowledge. And if Red, who nobody talks to, can figure this out, then something is wrong, and hopefully they can just pull him in before he tells anybody.
What's funny about this is, if you remember, Red was the one who said it's too early in the game to be talking alliances. Caught all the alliances and has said it. So in Red's mind, Red's like, look, I told you it was too early to be talking alliances because now I know all of them.
Yeah. And then after this happens, Corey goes and talks to Riley and Matt, chats with them for a while, and then more specifically talks with Matt about his conversation with Hisam. Now, this is where we learn that, as expected, as suspected, when he said that the conversation went well, he was lying. He says that he had a conversation with Hisam, and the guy just does not like him, and seemed to be probing him for information about their group. And he thinks that Hisam is really dangerous. And he thinks that Hisam might be kind of like the person who is leading the charge against them and their alliance. And he frames the conversation like Hisam already knew a lot of the information that Corey was giving him, which is true, but he doesn't know that because Hisam didn't actually say anything to him. And so it's a misrepresentation of what actually occurred in the conversation. And he says that he thinks Hisam might be trying to form something on the other side. And it starts to look like, Corey, who, certainly was leaning in the direction of working with Cerie and Felicia and them, is now kind of like, I think we might need to remove a few obstacles before that can happen, because clearly Hisam won't work with me. And is kind of diving back in to the other side. While this is happening, Cerie, Felicia, Izzy, and Bowie are talking about the age divide. Felicia says, it's like we're the professors at school. And Izzy says, oh, wait, hold on. New alliance name? The Professors. So that is the name of this 7-person bigger group of people. That's what we can call this side of the house. They go and talk to Red and Mimi about it, and they fill them in and let them know the 7 of them are locked in. Now, when they talk about Jared and how that he can be loosely worked with, Red says, we can't trust Jared. No. And he's on the other side. We should not tell Jared too much.
That was one of the names listed in the HOH crew.
Yeah. And then after Red and Mimi leave that conversation, Bowie's like, we're making this, but we're still like the core, right? And Suri says, bye-bye, bitches. Yeah. And Izzy says, that's our strength, right? Because listen, I love the cookout. Love you guys, but you were sloppy. They didn't plan for what would happen when they got to the 6, but we are. We're planning for it. That's us 4. And it's like, all right, tell me that you watched that season twice without ever seeing the live feeds because they had plans in abundance for what happened at 6. Let me tell
Yep.
you.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. It's not the worst thing to watch the show before going on the show. Watch a couple feeds, just like a little bit, just like at least watch some. If you somehow get cast before a season has aired where you have time to watch the feeds live, look them up. There's a way. Watch it. Find them. Do it. Please.
Yeah. Yeah.
Please.
So Riley starts telling Jag and the rest of the crew that Red has completely clocked their alliance and it's freaking her out. What's going on here? Matt brings up Hisam, the conversation with Corey, and how Hisam seems to really be digging for stuff because his conversation with Corey has sort of made him reinterpret his conversation with Hisam as well, where he feels like, yeah, Hisam is digging, and maybe Hisam is a lot more dangerous to us than we thought. And Riley says, oh, Hisam was grilling me too. It's Hisam and Izzy. It's both of them. They are trying to recruit and build an army against us. They are trying to come against us. This is bad. They can't get rid of Hisam this week. He holds the veto. The idea of backdooring Izzy is brought up again, but again, Riley says, nah, I can't lose Suri and Felicia though. And she starts telling the story about Red. And every time she tells the story about Red, she starts crying because it was just so stressful and there's so many things happening. And that's when Chad Cameron comes in to be able to calm the women down. And just manfully interrupts her many times in order to let her know that everything is fine. All right? Listen to me. Okay? Calm down. Just chill out. We can get Bowie through Red. We can get, Izzy through Suri. We are fine. Okay? You just have to listen. This is how the game works. You just have to figure out the people that they talk to and infiltrate the system. Okay? This is the difference between us, is that they just started playing the game. We've been formulating for days. So we need to just breathe. All right? Now, from what I'm hearing, my name didn't get thrown around in any of this stuff. So that's the thing. They know about you guys. They know about you two. They know about you two. They know about you two. But my name is not attached to any of this. So it seems like I need to leave you guys alone for a little while. If you guys trust me like I trust you, then I can bring back as much information as I can. Because again, nobody is looking at me right now. And that's our only saving grace. So listen, get some sleep right now. Tomorrow morning, I'm not going to talk to all of you very much. And I'll get to work and win the day, okay? Just chill.
Hey, stop being hysterical. Sounds like you're in trouble, but I'm fine. So I'm just gonna win. Y'all do whatever. Relax, chill out. Everything's cool. Oh. Here's what's funny. I love the idea. Several things. Riley saying they're trying to like form a war against us. It's like as if we had the one allowed alliance and any other alliances that form, those are in direct competition with us. They're coming after us. The only reason they form is against us. Whether or not that's like structurally true, it's like there can be multiple alliances. It's not like the main one and then everybody else. And then Cam's idea that, oh, of course, we're the only ones who formed an alliance on day one. We're the only plan that happened. You know for a fact that there were other alliances that happened early on. You know. that Kirsten tried to start one or two or four. It's like it's so funny. And also the fact that Cameron comes in with like the straightened hair during this conversation. I don't know. The whole thing was just a look. It was
Yeah.
interesting.
Cameron leaves after that rousing speech, and Riley is like, screw this guy. What is
really?
why is
That doesn't calm you down and like
down.
make you feel good. It doesn't make you feel good when you're like, hey, here are some bad things happening in our game, and someone just walks up and says, yeah, that kind of sucks for you. Why don't you just calm down about it though?
Yeah. She's not happy, and then she starts feeling like she needs to justify her emotional reaction now to the other people. She's like, you understand why I'm freaking out, right? Like this is not good for us. And they're like, yes, no, we agree, it's not good. They spend a lot of time up there continuing to circle around, talk about how they can, change things and who they should approach and all of that. They get very worried about how long they've been up there. After a while, they get even more concerned about Hisam because now he's like sitting downstairs, just like watching. And Jag like, I can't leave. He's gonna see me leave. And it becomes a whole thing. But the bottom line for this is that they are very concerned about Izzy and Hisam, and those two are the people that they are looking to target next week if they are to win HOH right now. But that's still not quite all, because if you got the sense that Cameron was feeling around for the eject button on this alliance, given his rousing speech, you might be correct, because he's going to go and talk to Red. And this is where things start to get even more weird. Cameron talks about how everyone's forming these alliances, but the two of them, they're the only two that have a real bond in this house. They were put here in this house for a reason together. And Red starts talking. He starts giving some info. He says, "Yeah, okay, listen. Izzy and Sari, they talk a lot of game." Then the feeds cut away from this conversation, which is very frustrating because apparently whatever happens while the feeds are cut was very meaningful for both of them. And when the feeds come back, Cameron says, okay, listen, you know how I told you there was some stuff that I hadn't told you yet? Well, what just happened between us was real, okay? While the feeds were down, whatever happened between them, it was real. Nothing before that moment matters. It's just me and you now. Wherever I thought I was aligned has now become me and you figuring out how to bust up both sides of this house. And Red says, yeah, I agree. So, and Cameron says, so don't ask me any more weird shit, all right? It's clear to the world where we both stand, and I love the shit out of you. Good night.
What weird shit did he ask him? What did we miss? No.
This guy. I think so. My assumption about what happened in that conversation is that Red started giving up some info on his side of the house and asked Cameron about his side of the house, and questioned, like, are you working with these people? And Cameron, I assume, kind of like denied it, but then probably admitted it to some degree. And then Red was like, but are you with me or are you with them? And then they both probably gave up some goods from the sides of the house and agreed to work together. And Cameron was essentially like, now that we've done this, now that we've spilled our guts and we know about the sides and we're working together to bust up both sides, don't be questioning me anymore because I'm with you. Nothing that happened before that matters. Now it's us all the way. But of course, we know Cameron, and so he probably still feels like he's playing Red to some degree. But the bottom line here is, the skepticism about Red being in this group was ultimately founded because he has already kind of potentially here given up some secrets. We don't know what secrets or how valuable those secrets are, but the bottom line is that both sides are now fairly aware of of what's like happening with these with the other side of the house, and that the sides are at war.
Yes, and that there are several people who are sort of I don't even know if I would say in the middle, sort of on the fringe of both alliances that are starting to share information to each other on different sides. I think you've got like definitely Corey, Jared, Cameron, Red, like they all have not locked in with one side or the other.
So we'll see. But just to try and give you like a summary of where things seem to stand right now, the family style side is looking at targeting Hisam and Izzy, who both kind of, you know, dug their own graves here in terms of being targeted. And then the newly formed professor side is looking to target Cameron with maybe like a Jag or Riley backdoor if it doesn't go through. And that's because they have Cameron in particular is really screwed up. Obviously, Riley screwed up, and Jag, unfortunately, probably the person who has screwed up the least of all of these people. However, is too clearly in a very good position, and they recognize every bit of the structure, including the fact that Blue says Jag is her number one. Riley says Jag is her number one. What does that mean? That Jag is at the center of everything. Jag didn't tell anybody who his number one was, but by process of elimination, everyone was able to figure out where he was positioned because everyone else in his alliance is so open about where they stand.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing that's really interesting is usually in Big Brother, there's even when there's multiple alliances and multiple sides of the house, it's rare that there is basically everybody in a side. The only people not listed in one of the two big alliances are Kirsten and Luke. This is the only people in the entire house not in one of the big alliances.
Yep.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yep. And they're going to keep working on Luke. So
yeah, so it's only a matter of time.
What's really interesting about this is that this is kind of a layout that we've never seen before. We've had split houses before, but what's interesting about this particular one is that these are split houses. Normally, split houses happen because there's two groups that naturally form because they get along really well, and then they just fight it out, and it's usually kind of personal between the two sides. But these two sides have been strategically orchestrated by the fact that, like, hey, we're going to create an onion and then we're going to retaliate against that onion because we found out about it. And now they're like hungry hippos trying to like gather as many pieces on the board as possible to their side before all the pieces are taken up. And then they will have the numbers to strike the other side first. And in the meantime, of course, there's a lot of like intermingling relationships and deals and stuff being made to make sure that, your individual person, people are not going to be targeted in the line of fire. And so there's a lot of layers to the strategy right now, and it's very, very interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's like, have we gotten too meta with talking about the Onion Alliance, with talking about the numbers, with talking about the retaliating, with talking about scooping up the people who they see are not in any alliance? Like, I don't know. Is there a point where it becomes game breaky, or you think it's all for the best right now?
I think we're just seeing like and it's not like the highest tier of gameplay, but I think what we're seeing is something that I have always advocated for, which is we've gotten a bunch of people in the house who all know the game. They've all seen the show, most of them at least. In fact, the two people who have seen the show the least are the two people who are not involved in anything at all, and one of them is about to be voted out. And we're seeing that they all are wanting to play very hard. And so we're seeing the game actually move in a way that we haven't seen before, because normally if you put people into a game when they don't know it very well, it's going to play out in very similar ways every time. But if you put people into a game who know the show and there's enough of them, then the actions have to have retaliations, and like there has to be an effect on the action, and then there's a reaction to that reaction, and things start to like uh, you know um, uh, compound against each other, and you get new results that you haven't seen before.
Yeah. Is is there anything that you think could change to keep Kirsten, and not just keep Kirsten, to get Kirsten in an alliance? Because I think the only way Kirsten gets in an alliance is if people make the decision that she's going to stay. So there has to be a backdoor. Like, I don't think anything's changing to make Felicia the target.
hmm Um, I think this idea was brought up multiple times of can we get the veto used, because they don't feel like Kirsten is much of a threat anymore. The problem is Heisem holds the veto,
Mm,
and convincing Heisem to use the veto, especially with the other side like not having any interest in that happening, especially because they've started to work on Luke, and I think they're actually making a little bit. They feel like they're making a little bit of progress. There's not any incentive for the other side to have Heisem use that veto.
right. Because
Theoretically, there's a little bit of time, but yeah.
yeah, the only benefit would be if somehow someone else in the opposite alliance goes up, which it's probably not going to happen. Like, no one in the
Mhm.
HOH alliance, no one in the family style is going to probably get put up there,
Yeah.
unless
Which
unless Cameron somehow just really backs himself into that.
yeah, which of course goes back to like, could the vote flip onto Felicia, if now that the Family Style Alliance knows that there's some amount of pushback and that there's actually a coordinated group. The problem is they don't see Felicia as an integral part of it yet.
Right.
Even if they did find out, they don't have the numbers to actually flip the vote at this
Yep.
time. So a lot still has to happen here, for Kirsten to stay. And uh, I'm hopeful. I'm worried for the episodes because if it focuses on Kirsten, we're gonna miss a lot. I mean, it should focus on Kirsten to a degree. We should see her story for sure. But like, what's happening in the game in the house is all around her and has very little to do with her at this point because they've all counted her out, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there any conversation like from the last couple days that you think they're for sure not going to put on the show that you think is like incredibly crucial?
Oh, geez. So many.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have no idea. There's no way they're gonna fit this whole storyline in. They're probably gonna show the creation of Family Style. They're probably not even gonna show the intricacies of the onions layers. They're gonna show Jared ratting it out, and then we're gonna see some like maybe like that conversation, maybe like the professors forming or something, right? Something like that. But a lot of this like intricate back and forth trying to vie for people, I think probably we're not gonna get the real vibe of. I think it's possible, but I don't know if they're quite up to it.
Yeah. I would love to see like, the Corey and Haysom stuff. That's probably not going to be on there, but we'll see.
It could be. I mean, it was very, very TV worthy, I think. So I wouldn't be too surprised if that made it in, because it's just so like you can't. It's like a train wreck. You just
Yeah,
can't
they could
stop
edit it,
watching.
like, because I think that's like a key time to put like, like crickets in, long
That
pauses, really. Yeah.
that's a conversation that they would like misleadingly edit to make it seem more awkward than it was, but it actually happened
Actually
in
was
real
that
life.
awkward. Oh,
All
good
right.
times, good times.
Yeah. Well, that's about where things stand for now. Um, the hungry hippos are going to continue to eat the little pieces. And then I don't know exactly how hungry hippos work, but I think that they might also accidentally lose some of the pieces as their open mouth opens to get more. And it's just going to be all over the place. So stay tuned. Tomorrow morning, I'll be back to update you on everything that happens today on the Big Brother 25 live feeds. It does not seem like anything is going to slow down anytime soon. Um, so yeah, just stay informed about what's going on. Keep tuning into these updates. And of course, tomorrow night we'll have the first roundtable of the season, first stock watch of the season, where we will give as much of a recap of the week as possible and rate the players for the first time. So that should be very fun. Um, and find me on Twitter and Twitch and watch things with me and listen to my thoughts and all of that good stuff. Mary, what do you got going on?
Got Big Brother going on. I'm excited to continue. Like yesterday was my first official day of like watching all the feeds. It's sprinkled throughout, but I'm excited to kind of get back more into that and probably be tweeting about it here and there. So feel free to follow me at Frail Mary for that. And like Taran and I over on the Instagram side, it was all the sports content. Taran's got his his rock climbing. Follow me for any kind of running things. That's mostly what I'm doing on Instagram. So if you just want something to mix it up a little bit.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining here today. And I will see all of you next time.